Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to LeMans. I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insane Leader 13, and we are about to get underway here for our 12th and final stint for the C lobby for TORA's 24 Hours of LeMans. Real quickly, let's look over the entrants that we still have with us. Looks like we still have 6 hypercars running. Eli Don't Do It in a Lambo, Nibbles Biscuit in another Lambo, LMP Flow in a BMW, MR Racing, another BMW, Hersky 96 in a Porsche, and Richard E. Crook in another Porsche. In the GT category, it looks like we may still have all 15 GT entrants somehow. Basically unheard of in TORA. We have VRT Palooza in a 264 BMW, Maista Soda in the, I believe that's the 45 BMW, Nahum Noctis in that white, red, and green OZ BMW, HYZ Kochu in the 999 BMW, Kevin RX7 in a car with the exact same paint apparently, AFZ Dark is going to be in that Uber Eats BMW, White Wolf, who won a stint earlier, is going to be back in that 44 BMW, Mashiro V7 is back in the number 26 Mercedes, PTG Ruscula is back in the 450 Ford Mustang, Cole GX II is back in the number 4 Mustang, Ace on 240 HPS is back on the 49 Mustang, FFR Kelchan, your lobby host, is going to be back in the silver Mustang as well. Apex Kimmy 7, a man in the midnight, will be taking the reins of the number 45 Chevy. One Chevy Cub will be back in that Visa 565 Chevy. And Floppy Disk Hero will be in the IARA number 21 Porsche. And that looks like it will be the grid for today's run. We're going to try and knock out a Twitch mandated ad break, and hopefully when we come back, they will be loading onto the circuit to start this final stint. Alright, we're going to already have to commit to a lobby restart because we just lost Apex Kimmy before we even loaded onto the track again. All right, here we go. Attempt number 2. Now beginning to get set up and get underway here. Interestingly enough, it seems like the weather is thundercloud, so while the track will have some warmth in it compared to what we had in the daytime, it's not going to be nearly as warm as it was last night. We're also going to be hearing the sounds of thunder, but rain is not going to be an actual issue in this stint. Okay, I didn't take too long, did it? That was a really short turnaround. Good job, guys. So if for some reason you have missed stints 2 through 6 that I covered here, it's not going to be a full pace lap. Excuse me. It will only be a short run up to the Dunlop Bridge, and then once the cars pass under the Dunlop Bridge, they will be green. So be aware, we're going to get underway very quickly once we load onto the circuit. Of our 15 GT cars that started stint 1, all 15 of them are still here in stint 12. Of the 8 hypercars that started in stint 1, we still have 6 of them. And it does look like it is Apex Kimmy 7, Man of the Midnight, will be starting at the front in GT, and LMP Flow will be starting in front in Hypercar. All right, here we go. Loading onto the circuit for attempt number 2 here. All right, here we go. Flo, Hirschi, Mr. Racing, Eli, Crook, and Nibbles. Your 6 hypercars is going to be Kimmy, Ruskula, Floppy Disk Hero, Cold GX, and FFR Kelcan will be your top 5 in GT. Throughout most of these stint starts, we've kept our eyes on the hypercars, but I want to keep an eye on the GT field on the start of this race this time. 3 different manufacturers running in the top 3 positions in GT. Hypercars already accelerating away, and our GTs are now underway. Kimmy did not get the great start, and Ruskula is right there under Kimmy. But these cars are a lot slower, a lot heavier. It's a lot harder for them to make moves on each other here in the Dunlop S's. Kimmy's going to try and use the sheer straight line speed advantage in that Chevrolet to pull away from Ruskula a bit. Floppy Disk Hero already under threat, and Cold GX back there in third. A little bit of side-by-side action farther back, but my focus is on the head of this GT Fields fight. Here we go. Using the draft, Ruskula gets to the inside of Kimi, side by side, as they come down to the braking zone of the first Mulsanne chicane. Boy, Ruskula broke really late, very confident on the way in. And yes, Ruskula goes to the lead over Kimi. Now down to the second Mulsanne straight. Cold GX has already disposed of Floppy Disk Hero, who is now at risk of being caught by FFR Kelchan farther back there. You can see Kimi looking to the outside, thinking about it, but he's not close enough to make the move. Ruskula taking a slightly defensive line, coming into the second chicane this time by. While it's not the greatest line in or out, it's enough to keep Kimi behind for the moment. Cold GX runs back there in third, trying to run down on the top two, as they now begin climbing the hill. And then after that, they will fire it off down into the Mulsanne corner. The most difficult corner, well, the most aggressive, the heaviest braking zone on the circuit. Still, it is Ruskula over Kimi. Both these teams have won stints thus far. These teams are the ones at the top in GT. And it looks to me like Ruskula just has Kimi's number, at least in these early moments here. Kimi runs right behind Ruskula as they come down to Indianapolis and Arnage. No big moves, no crazy heroics through here for now. They seem to be content to running nose to tail at the moment, slowly pulling away from Floppy Disk Hero, Cold GX, and Kelchan, who are running 3rd, 4th, and 5th in the GT category. Already in the hypercars, Richard E. Crook has slipped back to last place, just having a little bit of trouble keeping up with the rest of the hypercar field by the looks of it. Your leader is LMP Flo. Flo and Hershey had a bit of a lead swap near the end of the Mulsanne straightaways, but it's gone back, and Flo is back to the top spot in that LMP BMW team, followed by Hershey, then Mr. Racing. Nibbles has moved up to 4th. Eli has slipped back to 5th, and as I said, Richard has completely lost touch with them for the most part. Seems like the hypercars have kind of already figured themselves out. With how small that field is, it's not hard to do. The real focus is likely going to be on the GTs here, as Cold GX muscles his way by Floppy Disk Hero on the exit of the Porsche curves that time by. Kelchan is right there behind in 5th. Alright, down the start finish line and straight, and now uphill. Coming up to the Dunlop Bridge again. While these drivers haven't done a ridiculous amount of fighting, it has been enough that they're bringing White Wolf and Mashiro back into the fray. Draft is going to be huge for Floppy Disk, though. He's going to have a fantastic run on Cold GX at the head of this field. Here comes the run. Big draft. Cold GX running a slightly defensive line. Floppy Disk Hero wants to take the Porsche to the outside. Neck and neck. Heavy under the brakes into the first of the Mulsanne corners. Mustang Rand's a little bit wide, trying to give himself plenty of track to get nice smooth throttle application, but the Porsche is still there. Now even closer to his rear wing. Immediately, Floppy Disk Hero looking to the inside of Cold GX. Puts the nose of his Porsche ahead. Can he complete the overtake by the time they get to the braking zone? It does not look like it. Kelchan is right there as well, ready to capitalize if these two slide off circuit. A little bit of door bang there, but it does look like Cold GX lunges his way into the second chicane. But still, the Porsche's right there. Floppy Disk Hero setting himself up for another inside line now. when they come into the Mulsanne corner. This time Cole GX says, I'm not playing that game. He backs off the throttle, lets Floppy Disk take this position, and now Cole GX swaps over, and he'll be the one looking at the inside of the Porsche as they come down to Mulsanne corner. Side by side, a little bit of contact, and again, Cole GX nips Floppy Disk Hero on corner exit. That's Kelchan, who's dropped a tire into the dirt farther back. So that takes some of the pressure off of Cole GX and Floppy Disk Hero here in their fight for third. This time, Floppy is going to look to the outside of Cole. Side by side again for third position in the GTs. And around the outside, which turns it into an apex line, Floppy Disk Hero has the inside, makes a little bit of contact with Cole, but Cole keeps it out of the dirt, side by side to Indianapolis and Arnage. Cole has the ideal inside lane of choice. There's a little bit more contact again. That Porsche just does not have the handling necessary to make overtakes. All of its abilities to fight are just 100% reliant on the draft. You can very visibly see. And Floppy Disk Hero is going to have the draft one more time. Does he try to lunge it up the inside, coming into the Porsche curve? Well, he thought of it, and there's a little bit of door bang. They're still side by side as they come into the Porsche curve. Someone has to back out of it. Who's it going to be? As the Mustang, the Porsche licks the outside wall. Cole GX looks to the outside. And now White Wolf is there. Mashiro is there. And just for the moment, Floppy Disk Hero has the lead, but he slides wide coming out of the Porsche curves. He's got three Mustangs. Well, two, a Mustang, a BMW, and a Mercedes all on top of him. Side by side going into the Ford chicanes. But that time it was Cole GX who backed out, and White Wolf went for the move. Looks for the move again. Cole GX, White Wolf, Mashiro, all of them had a better run out of the chicane than Floppy Disk. They are three wide on the run up to turn one. And it looks like it's going to be Cole GX who will get the position. A little bit of contact. There's still three wide in the braking zone. And White Wolf says, screw this. He just cuts the circuit to try and go by them all. He was tired of this. So unless he lets off significantly and lets the field close back in, that will likely be a big penalty for White Wolf. Unless we see him aggressively let out the throttle and let the field run him right back down. That was one of the most egregious cuts that we have seen here in the C lobby thus far. So Cole holds on to fourth. Floppy Disk Hero right behind him in fifth. And then Mashiro is in sixth in that Mercedes. The Porsche goes to the outside. Being pushed, being shoved in a straight line by the Mercedes. So the Porsche has now cleared the Mustang in a straight line pretty much. And now the Mustang lunges late under braking, goes deep into the corner. And the Mustang retakes that spot. Floppy Disk Hero is going to get the draft off of Cole again, though, as they're all trying to close down on White Wolf up ahead. We're not really focusing on the GT lead fight right now. In that case, it is Ruskula and Kimi who have kind of gone back and forth in a relatively reserved and relaxed fashion. This fight for fourth has been the most interesting one. There's a little bit of contact, and the Porsche is shoved wide by Cole. Cole shoves Floppy Disk Hero into Mashiro, and all three of them compromise their times. So after cutting the track, now the rest of the GT field is all fighting, and White Wolf is at least on track to walk off and cruise with a third place result here. That's Dark coming into the fray. AFC Dark coming into the fray. Kevin RX-7 is coming into the fray. Too many cars, not enough space in this GT battle right now. Somehow they all kept it on track, coming through the Mulsanne corner. A lot of drafting shenanigans here. Does anyone try to go for a big, unexpected lunge going into the Indianapolis and Arnage corners? Here's the move. Dark to the inside. And he will make it stick. Dark picks up a position, but it's not going to stick, actually. That Mercedes he got alongside, it still has the inside when they come into Arnage. Contact between the two of them on exit. And the Mercedes retakes that spot. One Chubby Cub has now hooked up to the rear of this little pack of cars. Floppy Disk Hero still staying ahead of Cole DX II as they now fire it off down into the Porsche curves once more. Side by side in the Porsche curves, very unadvised. It looks like Kevin has gotten back by Dark. Chubby Cub now pulls up behind Dark, looking to see if he can figure out something, try and make a move, but it doesn't look like it's happening. They are nearly 3 wide farther up there. That is Mashiro, who muscles his way by Cole Jackson, now looks to the inside of Floppy Disk Hero, coming down into the Mustang, not the Mustang, to the Ford chicanes, and he'll clear him. Mashiro up to 4th now in the Mercedes, and the Porsche of Floppy Disk Hero slides off into the dirt, and any positive run they've had derails again, as that Porsche just does not have and has never had the handling consistency to enable it to fight prolong throughout an entire race, or throughout an entire stint, I should say. Meanwhile, in the GTs, it is Apex Kimmy who runs in 2nd behind PTG Ruscula, close enough to draft, not close enough to fight at the moment. White Wolf, after cutting the track massively right before the Dunlop Bridge, what in the middle of a big fight, has taken 3rd place and has just scooted off with the lead now. And Mashiro V7, the Mercedes, has now moved up into 4th and has broken the draft on our current 5th place driver, Cole GX II, who has RX7 and AFZ Dark behind him now. One Chubby Cub has slipped back to 20th spot, so I missed that. So he elected to pit. Yeah, One Chubby Cub along with Ace have both elected to pit early to try and spend less time dealing with traffic and spend more time focusing on pure lap times. It looks like Kevin RX7 is muscling his way by. Colt GX and AFZ Dark is going to follow suit. Now the draft goes back in the favor of the Mustang. They are 3 wide for 5th position here as they go down the 2nd of the Mulsanne straightaways. You could go side by side into this quarter. It's very unadvisable, but you can. But 3 wide is not advisable. Someone is going to have to back out here. And it looks like it's going to be none of them. No one's backing out. This is a recipe for disaster at the last possible moment. RX7 backs out of it. And that will work out well enough to let him clip Dark back by. But Cold GX gets back into 5th just for the moment. So our GT fights are now starting to calm down, but very interesting first 15 minutes here. But finally, it's all starting to calm down and spread out just a little bit by the looks of it. The 111 car of Kevin RX7 now pulls up behind Cole GX. Fakes a move to the inside, but not willing to make the run yet. Not willing to make the run this time by. Looking at the outside, looking at the inside. It looks like he'll commit to not making the move. He is not willing to make it unless he goes for this big late lunge into Indianapolis. Oh, and he made contact. It gets Cole GX sideways. That backs both of them up, and Dark goes for the lunge, but he doesn't have the stability in the car to go for it. Now Kevin gets to the inside as they come down to Arnage. Squeezing the Mustang wide. They both miss the apex of the corner. Awful exit for both of them. But Dark was too far back to really capitalize. Same with Floppy Disk behind now. Side by side again between Kevin and Cole GX as they're coming up to the Porsche curves again. It looks like Kevin goes plenty deep enough to snipe the position from Cole. Mashiro pitting after position. This looks like Mashiro has actually caught and passed White Wolf, and I missed that. And Cole GX is going to join them in the pits. So we are now in the middle of green flag stops for our GT field here. These drivers deciding to pit a little bit earlier than everybody else, trying to get off sequence, spend a little bit more time in cleaner air. So with that, we'll go ahead and take a Twitch mandated ad break. And when we come back, we'll likely catch the rest of the GT field and some of our prototype drivers or hypercar drivers make their stops. We'll be back shortly here at Le Mans. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you back here to Le Mans for the 12th and final stint for TORA's 2026 24 Hours of Le Mans. We are currently watching the stalking battle at the head of the GT field. Kimi started on pole with Ruskula in second, but it was within about a mile and a half that Ruskula clipped the lead from Kimi. Kimi's just been hanging out in the draft of the Mustang since, hasn't really been hustling, hasn't really been pushing to make any moves. And for drivers who want to pit once every 20 minutes, cut this race into 5 equal stints between their 4 mandated pit stops, this would be about the time that you would want to jump into pit road to make your first stop. Already, Mashiro, One Chevy Cub, Cole GX, and Ace have already made their stops, their first stops of the day. I'll give Kimi credit, he's done a good job keeping up with Ruskula, but between the two of them, Ruskula seems to be a lot smoother right now. Kimi seems to be a little bit less smooth in the car. The big thing that's helping them is the fact that there's so many long straightaways here that the draft is keeping them right in the area. All right, White Wolf is now pitting at a 3rd spot, and so is FFR Kelchan at a 5th. While our leaders have elected to stay out for another lap. For those of you who care about the hypercar category, as LMP Flo started up front and has been cruising up front. Mr. Racing has moved up into 2nd. Nibbles is 3rd. Hershey has slipped from 2nd to 4th. Richard E. Crook is back here in 5th. And Eli is back here in 6th. So a big chunk of the GT field elected to pit this time by. And Ruskula may have just broke the draft between themselves and Kimi this time by. So after most of the GT field has completed their first stop, Mashiro is going to move up into what is 4th overall and first of all the drivers that have made their first mandatory stop. And now our hypercar drivers are starting to come in. About 41, 42 minutes sorry, not 41, 21, 22 minutes into the run. Mr. Racing will stay out a little bit longer, so... So half of our hypercars pitted this lap. And our GT field has got nice and spread out now, as they are now being caught and passed by our leaders in hypercar. Kimi continues to run just outside of the drafting range of Ruskula at the head of this grid right now. Ruskula has it. Kimi just out of draft, can't really do anything. It seems like already most of the battles on track have pretty much dissolved. The main focus is going to be when do our drivers at the head of the GT field like to pit. 8% left in the fuel tank for this Mustang, so Ruskula will have to pit this time by. What of Kimi? Even less fuel in the tank, so both of our leaders in GT will have to pit this time by. This is Kevin, who is third right now. He only has 3%. He'll have to pit this time. He's got to come. Then Palooza here. He's got a little bit more fuel, 12.8%. He might choose to stay out for another entire lap. And then after that, you go to Mashiro, who has already made their first mandatory stop. There you are, Ruskula and Kimi paying at the same time. Looks like one chubby cub is starting to run down on White Wolf just a bit. So it could be a Chevy versus BMW action bit piece here. Not a great run through the Porsche curves, though, for this blue, white, and black Chevrolet. Chevy seems to be struggling just a little bit with the handling in these more downforce-focused parts of the circuit. But with Kevin and Palooza paying this time by as well, our entire GT field has completed their first mandatory stop. Now we see Mr. Racing making a stop. And Richard E. Crook and Eli likely will join them shortly afterwards. Ooh, hello. That's some action there between Ace and Cole GX. Pair of Mustangs getting at it with each other right now, near the middle of the GT grid. So after pit stops are done, it is still Ruskula and Kimi at the head of the grid. Well, that ended that fight as Ace has a gigantic slide coming into the first Mulsanne corner. I mean, first of the Mulsanne straights. That's going to actually put them in perspective from being clipped by FFR Kelchan now. This is basically a fight for 8th and 9th now, as Ace has lost touch with Koljex. Kelchan right on the rear bumper. Mustang on Mustang action here. For now, though, it looks like Ace is going to be able to hold station over Kelchan. Kelchan had been fighting for a top 3 result earlier, but slid off into the dirt, lost a bunch of ground, and only now have they started to recover something resembling their pace before that. And don't look now, but your hypercar field is now making its way through the GT field. This is LMP Flow. You can see Nibbles behind them. But at the front is still PTG Ruskula. Kimi has closed the gap back down, is back to giving Ruskula the draft stock, but is not really harassing him whatsoever. You can see Mashir a little bit farther back in third. This is White Wolf now has slipped back to fourth. One Chubby Cub is up to fifth. Kevin is in sixth. Seventh goes to Koljex. Eighth to Ace, who just botches the corner there. And Mulsan. Ninth is Kelchan. And then 10th back here is Dark. As Meister Soda and HYZ Kochu having a bit of a fight between each other. This HYZ team absolutely atrocious over the first 2 stints. 3 laps down in stint 1, 2 laps down in stint 2. But gradually they started putting pieces together, figuring it all out. And while they're not obviously going to be anywhere close to fighting for the win, they've not given up. They've stuck with it. And at the bare minimum, they can say that they've completed all 12 stints, and the drivers have learned a lot about what it means to race GT3s around what I believe is the best racing circuit in the world. Neck and neck, side by side still between Palooza and Kochu. Palooza's team was another one that had a lot of troubles back in stint 1, but gradually increased bit by bit as the race gone on. I do think that Palooza and Kochu, these 2 teams are likely having a legitimate fight with each other, and Kochu pushes Palooza a little bit wide just before they get to the Porsche curves, and Nahum Noctis muscles his way past as well. Palooza's caught way off guard by the presence of one of the hypercars as well. Still no change at the head of the GT field. The top 3 all stay the way they are. Top 4, honestly, all stay the way they are. Chubby Cub has lost a little ground to White Wolf. You really have to go back to about here. Poljix, Ace, and Kelchan to see the first actual fight on circuit here. And that is your hypercar leader cutting his way through this group right now. This is the fight for 7th, 8th, and 9th between Koljex, Ace, and Kelchan. Koljex, early in the event, that car had what we believed was the distance lead after the first 4 stints, but then stints 5 and 6 came and everything just kind of came derailed and unglued. While they had podiums in the first 3 stints, they fell to 5th in stint 4. Well, their result was 5th in stint 4, but the entirety of the top 6 were all within a straightaway of each other, so they wouldn't have lost a lot of time, but they disconnected early in stint 5, and stint 6, it was another 5th, but that time way down the grid. Here comes Ace on the outside of Koljex. Kelchan behind, watching them, but not really in a position to go for a big dive and push something here. Looks like for the moment, Cole has Ace's number. Another hypercar coming up behind them there. Oh, has Ruskula and Kimi made a position swap? Oh, we've got moves at the head of the field. Looks like Ruskula and Kimi, I guess Kimi has finally said, I've had enough just draft stalking. I'm going to make some moves. Now he falls back in line behind Ruskula as they come down to Mulsanne corner. But one of the best from Apex and one of the best from PTG going at it here at the head of the C-Lobby GT field in the final stint. Not only is this the fight for the stint victory, these are the 2 fighting for what would be the stint win out of all the C-Lobby drivers right now. Coming down to Arnage. Kimi closes just a little bit under braking, but it's not really an ideal corner to be side-by-side through. And now here we go, coming back on the run to the Porsche curves. You can see in the background still Mashiro V7 and White Wolf. And they also are going to have hypercars they'll have to be dealing with, likely by the time that this duo comes to the Ford chicanes. Kimi seems to be back to stalking Ruskula, but he has put Ruskula on note that, hey, he's not just here casually for a nice, easy run. He does want to capitalize. If Ruskula has a mistake, if he bobbles, if he chokes, if he coughs, Kimi will be there trying to capitalize. Into the Ford chicanes this time. Ooh, that was very suboptimal for Ruskula. He really lunged it in there, and it was not a fantastic lunge. And here comes your leader in hypercars, LMP Flow, catching your leaders in GT. Took him about 33 minutes to do so. A little bit longer than anticipated. It looks like Ruskula had a better run out than Kimi did, but now Ruskula was a little bit compromised by the presence of the hypercar. Kimi's going to be able to stay just barely within drafting range, I believe. That's Nibbles in second in hypercar now, having to deal with our top two in GT. But now that gap's opened back up in Ruskula's favor. So while a lap ago, Kimi started putting the pressure on Ruskula, now the momentum has swung, and Ruskula has broken the draft on Kimi once again. So Ace has slipped behind Kelchan, now trying to stay ahead of AFZ Dark at the moment. The race has seemed to calm down quite a bit sooner now than we have seen some of the earlier stints, and while there are battles going on, they are barely just two, maybe three car battles in the mid to rear of the grid right now. Good run by Dark. Dark was in the car that was basically the prime BMW, the top in the BMW Mafia in the first two stints. When the sun went away and the night came out, that performance of that team kind of slipped a bit. And it seems like they've never really recovered their Stint 1 and Stint 2 form. About 35 minutes into our final stint right now, so about a third of the way through Stint 12. Actually gave each other a reasonable amount of room through there. That's pretty respectable. Honestly thought that they would have tried squeezing each other, but no, despite the fact that it's near the end of the event and they're both tired, I'd imagine, they're still giving each other a pretty reasonable amount of room in the heavy braking zones. Ace has it, Dark wants it. BMW on Mustang action, probably the most common fight we have seen manufacturer on manufacturer today, just because BMWs have been the most common manufacturer in GT and Mustangs have been the second most common. Alright, well we're going to go ahead and take a Twitch mandated ad break and spend a lap on board with our leader, LMP Flow, for a flying lap at Le Mans. We'll be back shortly here. really sells how big the lap is. We've already knocked out our ad break, and we're still not yet halfway through the lap. We're going to keep running with flow here. And that is a flying lap on board with LMP Flow, your leader in Hypercar, 40 minutes in. For drivers who want to split the race in a nice even 20-minute stints, this would be the part of the race where you would want to go ahead and make that second stop. Looking at Kimi. One of the Hypercars made contact with them. I believe that was Eli. Squeezing by, but Kimi has been bleeding out time to Ruskula, so it does seem like Ruskula is going to scoot off into the distance with this stint victory here. Kimi was leading. His team, we believe, is leading in an overall distance out of the C Lobby drivers, but Ruskula was second, and as they're shooting off into the distance, that could be all it takes to give it back to them here. Give the overall GT stint win back to the PTG team here. White Wolf is going to pit out third. This should give that position to Chubby Cub now. RX-7 will stay out as well. Cole GX, though, will jump into the pits, as will AFZ Dark and FFR Kelchan. Nice to Soda, a little bit farther back. He'll jump into the pits as well. So then you have Mishiro V7, who is still committing to earlier pit stops in their Mercedes, trying to spend more time away from other drivers on the racetrack. So earlier, Mashiro had ran down and passed White Wolf. Is he going to be able to do that again? It does look like it. Mashiro is still well clear of White Wolf. White Wolf still hasn't even come out pit road. That is a massive gap in favor of Mashiro here. There goes VRT Palooza and Floppy Disk Hero briefly ahead now of White Wolf. So now White Wolf is stuck behind two different cars on an alternate pit stop sequence. So that massive gap he had opened up earlier is now going to be at major risk for the rest of this lap. Floppy Disk Hero looking at Palooza side by side for the position. The Porsche goes deep, and it looks like he'll get it for now. LMP Flow paying out of the top in the hypercar category, so our hypercar is also now committing to making their second stops now as well. Palooza not really close enough to make a big move on floppy disk this time. Seems like White Wolf is actually struggling to keep up with Floppy Disk and Palooza right now. Kevin RX-7 is close enough that he can see Chubby Cub ahead, but not really close enough to actively fight with him. Well, now they've caught him. Well, caught the Porsche at least in Indianapolis and Arnage. Looks like Kimi is electing to pit a lap earlier than Ruskila, so Ruskila's going long. Kimi's going to short pit a bit, trying to get onto an alternate strategy and make something else happen, I guess. Once W Cub is going to join him, as will Kevin RX-7. So when all that's said and done and over, that should put Mashiro back into second or third position, somewhere around there. This is the closest thing we have to a legitimate fight, and here we go. White Wolf to the inside of that Porsche. And there's nothing that Floppy Disk Hero could fight back with. Palooza's going to jump into the pits this time by, but Floppy Disk will stay out a little longer, trying to follow White Wolf. So White Wolf and Ruskila are the only GT drivers who have not yet made their second stop in this run. And that gap from the leader to the driver currently second in GT, absolutely absurdly large. Kimi has ended up right behind Mashiro. So if anything, I guess Kimi has actually lost ground, and Mashiro's really picked up the pace, so Mashiro is legitimately ahead of Kimi on merit right now. But Kimi may not be done with this yet. The draft is in his favor. He can try and take the fight back, so this is a fight for second in GT. We had to drop out. We did, and it was AFZ Dark who has dropped out here in the final stint. We'll try to reach out to Dark here, see if he is able to talk with us. But frustrating for a team that started relatively strong, but as it has gone on, it just seems like everything's kind of gradually decayed for their performance. Top two in the hypercar category now making a stop. So all of our hypercars except for Richard E. Crook has made a stop now. So he's going really long. Still watching this stalking battle though between Mashiro and Kimi. Kimi does not seem to want to really push the issue and hustle the car in these corners. Seems to be more focused on just turning consistent laps, hoping that will bring it to him. Normally that would be the way to go, but he had a little bit of time to burn. It would have been smarter, I would imagine, to burn it actively fighting with the drivers around him than would have been to just be behind and just see the time gradually bleed out. At least if you're actively fighting the drivers around you, maybe you can force them to make a big compromising mistake, and they'll also lose a bunch of time as well. Ruskula paying out the lead in GT. Bit of a slide there for Mashiro. Backs both these drivers up a bit. It seems like just like last time, Kimi is already gradually bleeding out time to Mashiro. So despite starting on pole, Kimi didn't even lead the first lap, and it's just been a slow bleed out of time and positions for Kimi over the course of this race, of this final stint. Floppy Disk Hero in the pits right now, so that is the last of the GT drivers who have yet to make their second mandatory stops. Nahum Noctis has already made their third stop. I'm not sure if they were involved in an accident that I missed, or if this is just a alternate strategy. Richard E. Crook is the one hypercar that still has yet to make their final stop. Palooza and Kochu still running relatively close to each other. Right now, Palooza has the better of Kochu on track right now. We're going to go ahead and take a Twitch-mandated ad break, and when we come back, we're likely to catch Crook making his second stop. Who knows what else may come yet. Still about 50 minutes left, so halfway through Stint 12 here at Le Mans. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Le Mans. We are in a relatively calm period of this race. The midpoint of this final stint. Most of the battles, most of the positions on track have already been settled. There are a handful of stalking battles going on, but not a lot to really talk about or get hyped up over right now. This is Cole GX staying ahead of Kevin RX7. Fighting for what is the 6th position on track. Ahead of him is one chubby cub who is trying to run down on White Wolf. I'm just watching this and I have literally nothing to say or talk about. Here comes a move. Finally, Kevin finally gains something going on Cole. Gets his to the inside, gets the nose ahead into the braking zone now. Goes deep, and it looks like Kevin clips Cole for the spot, for 6th spot for now. Well, these two can't really seem to figure out who's going to be ahead in this. They keep going side by side through some of these corners. Look at that RX-7. Kevin has an off... He goes really deep, and it gets him the position briefly, but it just compromises an exit in the worst way possible, and Cole goes right back to the point. Oh, wow, Kevin very nearly losing control, firing off down to Indianapolis that time. Keeps the car under him, though. Still just close enough to give Cole a little bit of hassle. Chubby still not closing on White Wolf quite at the rate we were expecting that he would, though. So at the front is pretty easily a walk-off by PTG Ruscula, but Mashiro V7 in that Mercedes is hanging out in the zone. Might still have something for Ruscula near the end if they can keep up a high pace, and Ruscula fades off a little bit. Kimmy stays out a little longer. They had to slip back to 3rd. Their pace has just not been there whatsoever. White Wolf runs in 4th position. 5th will be One Chubby Cub. 6th will be Cole GX. 7th will be Kevin RX7. 8th is Ace. 9th is FFR Kelchan. Then you'll have Meister Soda, followed by Floppy Disk Hero. Then VRT Palooza, HYZ Kaku, and Nahum Noctis runs last right now in GT. In Hypercar, it is LMP Flow, who leads pretty handily over Biscuit here, followed by Mr. Racing, then Hershey, Richard E. Crook, and Eli Don't Do It is last in the Hypercar category. We have all these GT cars in the upper midfield running close enough to each other that they can see each other, but not really close enough to really do anything or fight with each other, it seems. These two are still going at it like mad, though. I wonder if they've realized that both of them are just not really going to have any great results, so they're just out here having fun, trying to slam it out with each other here on circuit. Here comes the look to the outside. Kevin on Cole again. Outside's not the great place to make the move, but at least the 111 didn't fly off into the dirt this time. And we are closing in on the point that drivers who want to cut the race into nice early 20-minute gaps will be making their third stop now. Now already Mashiro has already committed to an early stop. They've been running early stops most of the run today. A little bit of bumper tapping between the two. But for the moment, Cole stays ahead of Kevin. Less than 40 minutes left in the stint. No big attempt to have a move between the two going into the Porsche curves. We're going to go ahead and spin the flying lap on board with PTG Reskila here at Le Mans. We'll be back momentarily, but let's give you one last idea as what it looks like on board the driver who we think is going to pull off the victory here in this stint. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was a full lap on board with PTT Ruskula, your leader here at Le Mans. Kimi 7 is pitting out of what is currently second position right now. So we anticipate they'll fall around Mashiro V7's place or a little bit before them. Flo and Nibbles both making their third stops, as is Hershey in the hypercar category. So that will briefly give the lead in the hypercars back over to Mr. Racing. But barring an accident or a disconnect or something other catastrophic like that, LMP Flo is going to walk off with an easy stint win and should be able to lock up the victory out of the hypercar entrance in the C lobby at least. In GT, it's still up in the air between Ruskula and Kimi though. Well, that was a little bit concerning to say the least. And we may have lost Ace. Yep, we have lost Ace, so that is our second disconnect of this stint now. We'll try to reach out to Ace, see if he has anything to say about what's happened to him. Kevin, coming out of the pits, will stay just barely ahead of Cold. No, will actually lose the spot to Cold DX. So these two are back at it again after completing their next pit stop. And yes, after pits were done, Mashiro is still clear of Kimi. Well clear of Kimi at that. All right, coming in the party right now is Ace on 240 HPS. Ace, are you able to hear me? Can you include your audio in the Xbox party?
Yep, just did.
All right. Rough time out there, and it seems like your run has come to a premature end here in the final stint. What do you have to say about your time out there today?
I was making up some really good time. Started gaining a lot more pace there at the end. Started running more in the low 54s rather than the high 55s, low 56s. Really sucks that I disconnected though. Last I heard, my team was like 20th in class, I believe.
That's actually kind of impressive considering this is a C lobby team and it's kind of been really up and down for you guys back here. So yeah, this will definitely hurt. I do want to ask, who are the other teammates in your car, just to jog my memory and everyone else's memory? Who are the other drivers in the car for the event?
It was me, Boiled, Bion, and Greek.
Okay, I think I only remember seeing you and Boiled, but okay, fair enough. One last question I ask of everyone in the final stint: what other Forza events are we likely to see you in over the next few weeks or months?
I'm not sure what else is going on. If there's something else that Core is doing that I'm interested in, you might see me there racing for an EMS as well.
Alright, well, we'll keep an eye then on that. Who knows? We might see you again sooner than we think. But I do want to say thanks for jumping in and talking with us. It's a shame to have to talk to you so early, but at least we do get a chance to talk with you today.
Yep, good for having me.
Alright, that's the word from Ace on 240 HPS, who's had a lag out only about 2 to 3 minutes ago. So we are now down to 13 GT cars still running on the track. PTG Ruskula pitting out of the top spot. We look at Mashiro. Has Mashiro been able to continue closing the gap down between themselves and Ruskula? Mashiro didn't start right at the top in this GT grid, but they have been plugging away forward here. Moving up the grid slowly yet surely. Flo retakes the lead in hypercars from Mr. Racing after Racing 5 completes their stop. About 31 and a half minutes left in this stint. Here comes Mashiro into the 4 chicanes now, but Ruskula is already rolling out of his pit box and out of pit lane. So while the gap is still closing between Ruskula and Mashiro, Mashiro has not caught Ruskula yet. But oh my goodness, they are so dangerously close. They can now visibly see Ruskula at many different points on the circuit now. So the lone Mercedes entry. the lone Mercedes entry, has been having a fantastic job in that Marion Kitagawa livery. I've known the character on the car for most of the day. Baisley in the chat also recognized it. I've recognized the car most of the day, but I've usually been too focused on other things going on to actually comment on that. Definitely one of the nicer on the eyes anime designs that you'll see in Forza. So we're gonna keep an eye on this what looks like a potential battle brewing for the top spot. PTG Ruskula took the lead in about the first mile and a half of the very first lap in this race. Well, in the stint, I should say. And just kind of hasn't looked back, but Mashiro has legitimately been running Ruskula down slowly but surely here. In other notes, one chubby cub has caught and disposed, well, not disposed of yet, but he has caught and passed White Wolf as well. So the Chevys, while they looked a little bit iffy back in the earlier stints, as this has gone on, both the Apex Chevy and this Mobile 1 Chevy both have shown quite a bit of capability here. And it looks like they are on track for another pair of top 5 results between the two Chevy entrants in this series. In this stint. Kimi had the overall lead Kimi's team had the overall distance lead of all the C-Lobby entrants coming into this run. I don't imagine he'll still have it after this, considering how he has just been gradually hemorrhaging time to Ruskula, though. Yeah, top category is the modern day hypercars. I will sometimes call them prototypes because fundamentally they take the same spot that prototypes used to have, but they are officially called hypercars. And in the top category is still LMP Flow cruising to an easy win here. Second place is going to be Nibbles. Third place will be Mr. Racing. Fourth place will be Hershey. Fifth place will be Richard E. Crook. And sixth will be Eli Don't Do It. We have had 2 withdrawals in the hypercar class over the course of the run. One of them, sadly, withdrew after a gain a podium in Stint 3 and winning Stint 4. They withdrew and did not start Stint 5 because they were down drivers and could not finish the rest of the run while lacking drivers. Looks like Mashiro is going to commit to an early stop once again with 27 and a half minutes left. So this will be the interesting thing for Mashiro because we've not really seen what Mashiro's car handles like late in a run when they have a lot more tire fall off and the fuel load's a lot lighter. The car's going to handle a little bit different. We don't know what Mashiro's going to be able to do in that scenario, but they are pushing for something here. 27 minutes left here in the stint. And they will be the first of the GTs to make their 4th and final mandatory stop. Ruskula continues to lead, though. Kimi re-inherits 2nd for the moment. Chubby is going to move up to 3rd briefly over Mashiro. White Wolf is 5th right now. Then is Koljiax, Kevin, Kelchan, Meister Soda, Floppy Disk Hero, Palooza, Kochu, and Noctis. It looks like Kochis is actually being run down gradually by Noctis back there. Well, White Wolf may have lost his position at Chubby Cub, but he's not letting him rush off into the distance. This stalking battle is still presenting itself right now. Trying to wrap it around the outside. Just a bit of contact. He turns him! Oh, and he turns him! And Shelby Cub goes around off the front bumper of White Wolf. Didn't look like he hit anything. There's no engine damage either. And the gap's not massive. Shelby Cub may be able to run White Wolf down once more before this is over. But that's going to cost both of them time. And Shelby has to run Wolf down all over again now. A little bit farther behind them, Kevin RX-7 and Mashiro are back to having their fight. BMW and Mustang going back and forth at it here for these positions. Is that a hypercar battle going on behind them? Yeah, Richard E. Kruk is losing ground to Eli, it looks like. Yeah, this is a legitimate fight developing in hypercar now. Oh, and that's a spin by BMW! And they kick one of the hypercars in the process. I think they'll both get away without damage. But Eli will move by E. Kruk there after E. Kruk catches the spinning car of Mashiro. But Kruk's not done yet. Kruk is right back there again. He now looks to the inside, side by side, firing it off. Kruk backs off as they come into the four chicanes. All of a sudden, it explodes in activity here. Oh, and Eli dropped the tire into the dirt. He's still off into the dirt, and Kruk fires it back off to 5th place. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I was like, hey, is there a fight going on back there? There was. And then a big spin and slide by Kevin RX-7 in the BMW. Oh, Kevin's angry. He just cuts the corner. I think Kevin's angry and wants to run back down on Coldex and make a point here. Looks like Coldex has backed off and let Kevin take the position back. So I think both of them realize that was a faux pas there, or Falx pass. So Kevin goes back in front of Cole. So I guess the driver who ended up causing the big slide there backed out of it. Let Kevin get the position back, but they're back to fighting. Thing is, both of them will have lost a huge chunk of time now going forward. Then again, it's not like they were going to really be able to do anything to anyone else going forward anyway. Kruk still a little bit sideways, trying to muscle his way away from Eli. But we've seen some weakness now. These two have now swapped positions at least twice in just the last circuit. Side by side again between Kevin and Cole now. With about 21.5 minutes left. To the inside is the BMW, but the Mustang wraps it around the outside. Gets on the curves, but does a good job keeping it on the ideal lane. Stays ahead of the BMW, but the BMW will have the draft. Side by side between these two. It looks like Cold EX has the better run and will pull back out ahead. Ooh, Kevin completely botches the corner there in Arnage. Alright, well, if drivers want to make their final stop after cutting the race nice into even 20-minute slices, this is the ideal time to make that stop. Excuse me. One Chubby Cub committed to a nice early stop. He's gotten ahead of Meister Soda now. Needs to keep focused forward if they want to be able to stay ahead of White Wolf, though, as Wolf is running in clean track right now. As I say that, though, White Wolf has just now come into the pit lane. That'll be their final stop. Cold GX is pitting, but Kevin's going to stay out a little bit longer. Mashiro already has pitted. We believe that they are still going to be second, trying to run down on Ruscula in these closing 19 minutes. We're going to go ahead and take a Twitch-mandated ad break now, and when we come back, we'll likely catch the rest of our GT field making their fourth and final stop here in the final stint for C Lobby of TORA's 24 Hours of Le Mans. We'll be back shortly. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Le Mans. About 17 minutes left. Right now we are looking at Mashiro V7. They are fourth on track right now, but highest of all the drivers who have already pitted. The question is, does Mashiro have anything for PTG Ruscula in these closing minutes here at Le Mans? Only about 4 more laps left. When does Ruscula elect to make their final stop? Are these two going back at it again? Yes, they are. Eli has actually caught Richard Kruk again, it seems. So while it's not much, we have a fight in hypercars once again late in the event. Kruk has it. Eli wants it. He's got the draft. Kruk runs a defensive line. Eli's not really in a position to lunge going into the 4 chicanes this time by. For the moment, at least. Kruk has it. It looks like Ruskula is staying out another circuit, but Kimmy will pit with a bit less than 16 minutes left now. So Ruskula is going to pit at the last possible moment. We'll probably put on new tires and just the bare minimum amount of fuel. Nose to tail between these two. And now here we go. Eli's going to try and wrap it around the wider outside line. Does it. And that is Eli going by Richard for 5th in Hypercar. These two both have yet to make their final stop as well. Kevin also went ahead and jumped into the pits also, so that should give Mashiro completely clean track ahead. Down the first of 3 Mulsanne straightaways. It looks like Eli is just scooting away from Kruk. Has Kruk damaged his engine, or is it just fatigue getting to him? It may just be fatigue getting to him. And LMP Flo now paying out the top spot in Hypercar. Mr. Racing second. I imagine he'll consider jumping in and making their stop this time as well. Kruk trying desperately to just re-sniff the draft from Eli here. And yes, Mr. Racing will join Flo in the pits. Nibbles already pitted some time ago. Big slide out of the second chicane there by Kruk. But it looks like Eli has it for the moment. All of our GT drivers, except for PTG Ruskula, have made their 4th and final mandatory stop. With about 14 minutes left, it's really just these two drivers we're looking at here, and your leader in GT, Ruskula, who have yet to make that final required stop. And the 88 misses the corner! The 88 completely botches it in Mulsanne corner! That will likely settle the fight for 5th in Hypercar. So the focus now goes back to Ruskula. How much longer does he stay out here? Doesn't have a lot of fuel left. Will probably jump in, put in some on new tires, and just the bare minimum amount of fuel for what will basically be, what, 11 and a half minutes of racing. So he'll be putting down some of his fastest laps near the very end with a very light fuel load and nice grippy tires here. The question, of course, is Mashiro. How close is Mashiro going to be to Ruskula? They're both turning laps in clean air at the moment. Ruskula will have a few corners to get the tires back up to temp, but once the tires are up to temp, he's going to have a tire advantage over Mashiro. But Mashiro has been running with early pit stops the entire time. We don't know what Mashiro's car is going to handle like now, because now they're going to have more tire wear than they've really had at any point in this run. They've been abusing the undercut very aggressively to try and close in on Ruskula. Ruskula has been doing the overcut to try and set up for a really, really short, fast run at the very end of this. Alright, Kruk's pitting this time. Wait, did Eli not pit? Oh no! Eli did not pit! And with 2 minutes and 15 seconds left before the pit road closes, Eli is not going to be able to make it around the pit. Eli, don't do it! Well, too late. Eli's done it. Eli is going to get a penalty for not completing all 4 mandatory stops before that 30-minute timer. So while Eli may have gotten ahead of Richard, it's not going to matter. This is going to be a catastrophic penalty for this team. This is the second time it has happened today as well. All right, Ruskula is in the pits this time by Mashiro, still making their way through the Porsche curves. Ruskula is just now stopped in the box. This will be a short stop for him, not needing a lot of fuel. Well, they put a lot of fuel in anyway, 50% out. I can't believe they would actually need 50% for what will basically be 11 and a half minutes of racing here. Mashiro out of the Ford chicane, flying down the front straightaway now. That's not going to be enough. Ruskula still has the position. But Ruskula is way overfilled with fuel. I wonder if they're running all this extra fuel for stability in the rear of the car. But yeah, Mashiro has way less fuel. They do have a lot more tire wear, but way less fuel. But yeah, Ruskula still holding a big gap over Mashiro by the looks of it. So that seems to be pretty cut and dry. Kimmy is solidly in third. Fourth place has gone back to White Wolf, it seems. Chubby has slipped back to fifth. Sixth will go to Cold DX, who is just barely ahead of Kevin. In seventh, after that would be eighth place FFR Kelchan, your lobby host. Ninth would be Meister Soda. 10th will be Floppy Disk Hero. 11th will be Palooza. 12th will be Kochu. And this here, Nahum Noctis will be 13th last of our still reigning GT drivers. In Hypercar, it's pretty straightforward. LMP Flow leading and is going to not only win this stint, but probably bring home the win for their team amongst all the C-Lobby Hypercars. Nibbles is going to come home in second. Mr. Racing will be third. Hursty will be fourth. Fifth will end up being Richard E. Crook. They're sixth right now, but Eli did not pit before that timer hit 30 minutes, so they are going to have a massive penalty coming their way. 9.5 minutes left here. This here seems like it will likely be the only real fight going on to the checkers, so we're probably going to focus primarily on this to the end of this race here. I'll keep AI on Ruskula and Mashiro, but it does not look like Mashiro is going to be able to catch Ruskula before this is over. So now Eli has made his fourth mandatory stop, but again, he's going to have a massive penalty for waiting too long to make that final stop. Nothing crazy this time going into Indianapolis. These two have gotten into it with each other already, but they both backed out and kind of let each other catch back up so they could continue their fight. I think they're both very aware that they're not really in contention for wins. They're not really contention for even a good result. They're just here to try and have a respectable battle and not rack up a ridiculous amount of penalties on the run to the end here. Don't want to be going side by side through the Porsche curves, but they keep ending up in these positions where they are. Bit of a slide there on exit by Kevin, kind of leaves him exposed to Koldix having a better run out, better momentum carrying out of the final chicane, and going into the braking zone of turn 2, Koldix is back ahead of Kevin. 6 minutes, 15 seconds left. While Mashiro can see Ruskula, they do not have the time or the speed to catch Ruskula before this is over. Hypercar presence really kind of caught Koldix off guard there, but not enough to compromise him. The bigger problem is going to be the big draft that Kevin's going to have here. Real quick, a look farther up the grid. Shelby Cub can see White Wolf ahead. This would be the fight for 4th and 5th between these two. If Shelby Cub can catch White Wolf. He's caught him before, but they made contact, and Shelby went for a spin off of White Wolf's front bumper. It's been a slow attempt at recovery since. All right, just about nose to tail between these two again. Down the second of the 3 Mulsanne straightaways. What does Koldrix have for Kevin, if anything? They've swapped positions plenty of times. It looks like they're going to do it again. Koldrix, looking to the inside, will have the nose ahead as they go into the braking zone. The second Mulsanne chicane. Hold station, and he's got him. So for the moment, at least, Koldrix has Kevin, again, about 4.5 minutes left, so they'll be able to complete about the distance of another lap, this duo. Again, I look back here at White Wolf and Shelby Cub. The gap is slowly winding down, but time is also running out. Shelby can catch White Wolf, but will he have enough time to do anything? Again, there was contact. Shelby spun off of White Wolf's front bumper coming out of the first chicane about 25 minutes ago, and Shelby has been trying to recover since then. He's just about caught White Wolf. This is the fight for what will be 4th in GT. Every other position, with the exception of 6 between Cole and Kevin, is pretty much resolved. It's really this one, and then that fight in 12th and 13th as well. When the clock says 20 minutes remaining, every driver will be required to jump on the brakes and stop where they are on the track. The subsequent 20 minutes, all of the drivers will be required to report their total distance covered and the distance gap between themselves and the leader in Hypercar. That information will be reported to Kelchan, who is the lobby host and the TORA official for this stint. That information will be put into the document to determine what everyone's team total distance is, because they do that for every single stint over the event, and it is the total cumulative distance over all 12 stints that will determine where everyone's finishing positions are. And Shelby had an absolutely atrocious run through the Porsche curbs that time. I think that settles it in White Wolf's favor, so Shelby will not have a shot at White Wolf here for the end. Unless White Wolf makes a big mistake or something. That basically settled that battle. Less than 2 minutes left. These two probably will go out to the pub and get each other, buy each other a drink, considering how often they've seen each other and have at least tried to be relatively respectful. Final time down the Mulsanne straight for these guys into the first of the chicanes. A little bit of contact, but the BMW keeps it pointing roughly the proper direction. Now it'll be Cole who will have the draft this time by. Down the second straightaway again. The second of 4 consecutive straightaways. They're not going to have time, I think, to get past Indianapolis and Arnage. I don't even know if they'll get to Indianapolis and Arnage. Oh! Something's happened to White Wolf! White Wolf's crashed! At the last minute, White Wolf has had a crash! He crashes out of the top 5! White Wolf has had an accident! And the second Mulsanne chicane! At the last, most critical moments! And it's all gone pear-shaped for White Wolf! And this will put Shelby Cub up into the Gap is big, but it is now winding down rapidly. But the time's closing down. 3 seconds, 2, 1. Time's up. Over. Plow. And that will determine everything. And Floppy Disk Hero also looked like they cleared White Wolf at the last possible second as well. So we saw there, it looked like it was Cole who was just barely ahead of Kevin at the end there. And that will end the final stint. A real quick rundown of the field here. LMP Flow wins without any issue whatsoever. Nibbles Biscuit was a respectable second, but not enough to really do anything to Flow. Mr. Racing will come home third in Hypercar. Fourth will be Hershey. Fifth will be Eli Don't Do It. Sixth will be Richard E. Crook. Then you get to the GT category. PTG Ruscula takes home a pretty respectable win, but Mashiro really closed that gap down at the end. Third place will be Apex Kimmy 7. We don't know if that will be enough for the Apex team to take the GT win. We probably won't find out during this broadcast either. One Chubby Cub ends up in fourth after White Wolf has a crash at the last possible minute and 10 seconds. Cole GX the second, I believe, will take home fifth. Kevin RX7 will take sixth. FFR Kelcham will be seventh. Eighth will be Meister Soda. Ninth will be Floppy Disk Hero. No, wait, this is 10th, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, 9th is Floppy Disk Hero. 10th will be White Wolf. 11th will be VRT Palooza. 12th will be HYZ Kochu. And 13th and last of our GT runners will be Nahum Noctis. We had 2 disconnects, Ace on 240 HPS, and AFC Dark. We're going to go ahead and take a Twitch-mandated ad break, and when we come back, we'll try to talk with some of our top finishers here at Le Mans. All right. Mashiro, can you hear me? All right. Excuse me. I hear you, yes. Okay. Can you include your audio in the Xbox party?
I see, I see. Is it okay?
Let me check. Yes, you're good. You're good
Yeah.
now. Yes, it worked. Okay, Mashiro, interesting time out there. Didn't start up for front, but you climbed all the way up to second and nearly caught Ruscula at the end. Great drive.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about your run out there?
Yes, thank you. I started from P10 in lobby, I think. But first, I repeated undercut. Like pitting in lap 4, then lap 9, then lap 14, then lap 18. And I did a stint. I did 2 stints without tire change. So yeah, I managed to close.
Wait, you did
I
two
managed to
stints with
close.
no tire
Yes.
change?
Yes. Not. not continuously.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I did stint without tire change separately. Yeah, like first stint between first and second, and third and fourth in this stint. So
My goodness.
yeah, I managed to save 1 second per pitting, I think.
Yeah, normally changing tires costs about 2.5 seconds in the pit box. So yeah, that probably would have gotten you about 1.5 seconds up to 2.5 seconds by not changing tires. So my goodness, I can't believe you. I would never do that. I love fresh tires too much. You are a madman. You're a monster, Mashiro.
Not really, because I think AMG is so easy to manage tires. So yeah, the tire lasts for 9 laps. So yeah, at the end of lap 9, tire is 50%. Both tires, both front and rear. So I didn't drop lap time. Not much, not really.
All right. I do have to ask, this race is done. What other stuff in Forza do we think we'll see you in the next few weeks or months?
Sorry. Can you say again? Can you ask again?
What other Forza races will you be in going forward?
For the event?
Yes.
Oh, I see. I'm considering to participate in HYR Road America Endurance.
Ooh, that will be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's ahead of next TORA Endurance round. So yeah, maybe the next Forza event for me will be next TORA event, Hockenheim, I think.
All right. Well, whether it ends up being at Road America or Hockenheim, I will definitely keep my eyes open on you because it has been fun to watch you out here at LeMans today. Yeah. I'd love to see what you can do at some other places going forward.
Yes. I'm also considering to race in Forza Horizon 6.
Mm-hmm.
In team wars with my own team, B7 Motorsports.
All right. Well, I'm not in a position to stream Horizon 6, but I'm sure people will still keep an eye on you there if you end up in Horizon 6, because that could be interesting to watch going forward as well.
Yeah, indeed. I'm excited to race in there too. I really enjoyed competition in Forza Horizon 4 team wars with my Japanese friends. So I want to do it again.
All right, Mashiro, I want to say thank you very much for jumping in and joining us here at LeMans. Thank you for the interview, and you've raced well. I hope you can get a good night's sleep after this.
Yes, thank you. Good. It was a fun race. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for hosting interview. Insane.
Mm-hmm. All right. Farewell. All right, that
Yeah.
is the word from our second place finisher in the Stint Mashiro V7. I've also gone ahead and sent a handful of interviews out to a few other people, but I've not gotten any word from them yet. I'm going to wait a little bit, but if no one else jumps in shortly here, we'll probably go ahead and let them go. But right now, we're just kind of in a prolonged holding period right now.